Hey everybody, this is Flavio Romeo, and on this episode of the Towncast, we had the opportunity to talk to James Kolaski, who is a detective sergeant for the Glen Rock Police Department, but what I like to call an investigative historian. He shares some amazing stories about things that happened before World War II, after World War II, and especially the Nazi that lived in Glen Rock and the German-American Bund. It's really fascinating story. So enjoy the episode, everybody. All right, everybody. So here we are. We're at the Stone and Rail. Just a beautiful place. We've done a couple shots here, and they have great food. It's amazing. It's a beautiful place. And now I understand from our guests that the bar is actually from a house here in Glen Rock, which is pretty cool. I didn't even know that. So, Detective Sergeant James Kolaski, Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
So, what attracted me, James and I spoke, and he is. I'm going to call you. I wrote it down. I'm going to call you an investigative historian.
All right, I'm cool with
because
that.
you bring a different twist to history. He's a history buff, and he has a master's degree in history. And as we started talking, there were some things that happened here in this area that just were so intriguing to me that I wanted you to share it with everybody. But first, how did you get interested? First of all, you're a police officer. You're a detective sergeant right here in Glen Rock.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you
for everything you guys do. You and your department. It's and then all of these small towns. Just we kind of take it for granted that you guys are there.
Appreciate that.
So thank you for
especially nowadays. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. Especially nowadays. So what got you interested in history? How far back does that go?
From birth.
Really?
My father was a history teacher.
Was he really?
Probably close to 40 years.
So you grew up in a house of history.
Yeah, always into history, always into documentary films, always into historic movies, books.
Did he share history with? Obviously he did. If it's his life.
Yeah, I mean, we would go to history trips and stuff like that. I remember one of my birthdays, we actually went to a historical reenactment. That's what I wanted to do for my birthday. We went to
that was your idea?
It was my idea. Like a Revolutionary War historical reenactment.
He must have said, "That's my son. That's my son. No Disney World for you."
It was fun. I had fun. I think the kids
was it Revolutionary War?
Yeah, Revolutionary War. Yeah, we were. I think it was at Fort Lee.
That's very cool.
Fort Lee. It was cool. So, but yeah, I've always loved history.
Yeah, and obviously you went to college. And what did you go to college for?
No, actually, believe it or not, I didn't do anything history-wise in college. I got my undergraduate degree in sociology and criminal justice because I wanted to become a police officer.
Is there any history in your family of police officers?
No, not at all. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've actually done my family history, and way back, I found police officers in my family tree, but nobody I knew about growing up, nobody that influenced me to become a police officer. But yes, I don't know why. I've always been a person that, I never wanted to wake up in the morning and know exactly what I was going to do that day. Where I knew everything that was going to happen all day long. So I like the spontaneity of police work. I like going to work. And I could be working on something, and all of a sudden,
surprise!
Yeah, exactly. Surprise comes in, and
you're going here now.
Yeah. The other day, I said to one of my guys I work with, I said, I come to work with a plan, and I never get that plan done because something always comes up, and we're running off to something else.
Right.
But I like that spontaneity. So that's what attracted me to police work. I like helping people.
How long have you been on the force?
I've been on it for 23 and a half years. So yeah, I'm getting close to retirement.
Yeah. You're getting close.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, a couple more years.
23 and a half years. God bless you.
Yeah, thanks. So I got hired in 2000 and early 2000.
I can't even believe that 2000 was 23 years ago.
I know. But yeah, I've always been interested in history, and while I was a patrol officer, I would was still interested in history, and I figured I'm not a morning person, so I didn't work a lot of day tours. I worked a lot of midnight tours.
You had the night shift?
I had the night shift by choice. I enjoyed that, and
the quiet of it all.
Quiet, yes, but we would always, you always had interesting things at night. I always felt like, there's a different kind of person out at 3 o'clock in the morning than there are at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah,
so,
they're usually drunk and on the way home. Or
there's
stumbling
all
around
different
in the
things
dark.
going out. So, but I enjoyed working midnights, so what I ended up doing is I used to read a lot of books, and I thought to myself, I'm reading all these books, but I'm not getting anything to show for it. So I said, let me just go get my master's degree for fun. Like, I had no reason to get it.
For fun.
Yeah,
I have time to kill. Just go ahead and get my master's. So you did it while you were working.
So I did it while I was working. Well, I mean, not while I was working.
Yeah. Scratch that.
But while I was a police officer, I ended up I enrolled in William Patterson, and it was a small graduate program for history. I think there was like 10 people in my class, and there was actually another police officer in my class.
Was it really?
Yeah, who I didn't know at the time.
Also bored from midnight stay.
He just kind of the same story as me. He was a history buff, and he just said, I just want to do this for fun.
That's cool.
So we're actually
cool.
still friends to this day. I still talk to him all the time. I'm sure he'll see this.
Oh, that's great.
And he's a cop over in Tenafly. And we became friends. And actually, one of the wives of a cop was in my class as well. So I became friends with him. He's a cop in Allendale. So small circle. I guess there's a lot of historians.
A lot of historian police officers.
Yeah. So anyway, I got my master's degree while I was working midnights. I would go to school at night, and then when I would leave school, I'd go to work and do my police job. So, but I was able to kind of do that over a 5-year period. I ended up getting my master's degree, and I figured at some point in time that might come in handy. And now that's kind of what I'm angling for as I retire or get to my retirement age.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about when you retire?
So, because of my graduate research, my master's thesis was on the German-American Bund. And
let's talk about that.
Yeah, so my work on the Bund put me in touch with a couple different people, a couple authors and some people that had been involved in some stuff, and I ended up doing some local research about the Bund, and that has kind of, not on purpose, but bloomed into a potential retirement gig, if you would.
Well, and describe what the German-American Bund was.
So the easiest definition of the Bund was a pro-Nazi organization in the 1930s. So prior to World War II, there was a unit or an organization called the German-American Bund, and Bund just means organization in German, and they were in the United States, and they were pro-Germany, pro-Nazi Germany, and they operated in the United States. Their headquarters were in New York City.
Where were they? Do you know where the headquarters was?
In New York City,
Yeah.
In Manhattan.
Oh.
I think it was East 85th Street. I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah, but in that area. Heavily influenced in Yorkville, which is, there was a German area growing up. They had camps throughout the United States. They were active in politics, not political candidates, but they would support candidates that would support either isolationism or, were anti-British. So you have this organization that was very open. They would have parades with swastika flags down Madison Avenue or down Broadway in New York City in the 30s. Yeah, not now, in the 30s.
Right. I can't even imagine if they tried doing that now.
And and it was like lost to history. When I read about this organization,
Did you know anything about it before?
Never heard about it, never read about it, never seen anything on the History Channel about it. And the more I looked into it, I was like, this is insane. Like, I am a history nerd.
Right.
And I'd never heard about this, and it happened in our backyard.
Wow.
So the more I looked into it, the archives, the FBI investigative file into the German-American Bund, it's about 2,300 pages. I've read every single page of that investigative report. Yep.
Well, there's your thesis.
Yeah. So that was it. Actually, was a good basis of my thesis. My thesis was actually examining the German-American Bund as a threat to the United States from a law enforcement perspective. So I used my investigative and law enforcement perspective to analyze it, because a lot of the historians kind of came out in the 70s and 80s and said, yes, this is an anti-Semitic organization, it's a racist organization, it is a bad organization, but they kind of came to the conclusion that they were like bumbling idiots that couldn't really get out of their own way, and they really weren't a threat.
Yeah.
And I've actually done the research and kind of looked at it from the FBI's point of view, from a law enforcement perspective, and come to the conclusion that they actually were a threat. And we'll get to some really cool stories later on about some espionage and spies and stuff. But anyway,
how long was the German-American Bund? How long was that in existence?
So the Bund itself was from 36 until the day after Pearl Harbor. They got shut down the day after Pearl Harbor. All the camps got raided. But prior to 36, there were predecessor organizations. So you go back all the way into the 20s. I think like 1926, you had the Teutonic Society. Then you had GAL USA, which is actually the only officially sanctioned Nazi organization inside the United States. All the other organizations were Nazi supportive, but they weren't affiliated officially with Third Reich, and this one was. It lasted about a year, so it wasn't very successful.
Right. Clearly.
Yeah, and then you have the Friends of the New Germany, and then basically what happened was, as from like 33 to 36, the Friends of the New Germany is kind of giving Berlin a black eye in the media. They're like kind of like a black sheep. They're giving them some bad press. So Berlin kind of puts out this edict that says, if you are a German citizen, you cannot be in this organization. So
Really?
Friends of the New Germany disbands in 36, and it kind of splinters into two groups. You have the German Bund, which was for like German citizens, and it really didn't have much to do here in the United States. And then you have the German-American Bund, and that was anyone who had an American citizenship or was in the process of taking their citizenship out. They could be in the German-American Bund.
And they're from Germany that came to America.
Could be anyone. They had Irish people in it.
Really?
Yeah, they had Irish people in it. They had Spanish people in
Anyone
it.
that
Anyone that believed in
that
this, exactly, in that edict. But most of them would have been German-born. And it's an interesting, I have German, my family's German, and I have German, family history, but all my ancestors came prior to World War I. So my ancestors never went through the Treaty of Versailles, the end of World War I, the economic revolution and hardship in Germany. So as a general rule for my research, it's not hard fast, but as a general rule, anyone that emigrated to the United States prior to World War I really didn't have these nationalistic tendencies.
Right.
They wouldn't have been a member of the Bund. Anyone who came to the United States after World War I, they were the
completely different mindset,
different upbringing, different environment that they grew up in, or that.
What changed that?
What changed what?
What changed that mindset? What changed it?
I think the Treaty of Versailles and the economic depression and the revolution that went over there. They were fighting communism and stuff like that. So the Treaty of Versailles really kind of, and purposely, they did on purpose. They wanted to basically make Germany not be able to be strong
Never
again.
do that again.
So they kind of like economically, militarily, culturally put them into the Stone Age. And if you don't give people hope, they're going to latch on to some radical ideology. So
someone's going to step up.
So here come the Nazis to fill this void and say, you're not dirt, you're the Aryan, the great race, the perfect race. And a lot of people grabbed onto that. Whereas like you have my ancestors that immigrated here in the late 1890s or 1900, they didn't go through that.
Right.
So they didn't need to grab onto that Aryan race theory.
Yeah.
They were assimilating into the United States. So
amazing how that changed in like 10 years.
Yeah, but as I was going through the FBI files, I come across this guy who lived in Glen Rock. Yeah,
from the Bund.
Yeah, from the Bund. So the leader of the Bergen County unit of the German-American Bund lived in Glen Rock.
Really?
He lived in Glen Rock.
The leader of the Bergen. Do you not?
And they investigated him as a spy. It says right in the FBI file, suspected Nazi agent or spy, Carl Shiphorst, Glen Rock, New Jersey.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy. So did it say how many? Did it go into how many members there were?
So, even though it was not, in the 1930s we didn't have the Holocaust yet, so we don't have the benefit of hindsight. Nowadays, you think of anything Nazi, it's like, oh my God, it's the Holocaust, immediately bad. But in 1930, you don't have that yet. It's just an ideology that hasn't become the pariah it is now. You may not agree with it. It may be radical. It may be anti-Semitic, but it wasn't the Holocaust. Right. So even still, it was maybe people didn't want to be associated with it publicly. You have a prominent businessman who believes in it. Charles Lindbergh, America First organization. He was an isolationist. He wasn't a member of the German-American Bund, but he certainly had similar ideology with the Bund. So he received medals from Germany. Henry Ford received medals from Germany. So you have maybe prominent businessmen that supported it, but maybe didn't want to be publicly associated with it. So it's kind of hard to narrow down a membership. Most historians say anywhere between like 20 and 100,000
in the U.S.
Yeah, in the United States, and the safe bet is about 40 to 60,000.
Were there small county type groups across the country, or was it mostly East Coast?
No, so they had actually 3 departments. So they had GAO East, GAO Central, and GAO West. So GAO means division or group. So the Eastern United States, Midwest, and then West like California and that kind of stuff. It was mostly concentrated in the North. You didn't really have a lot of German communities in the South. You had a couple splinter organizations around the area in the South, but for the most part, it would have been Milwaukee, Chicago, New York, anywhere that had
northern Midwest.
Anyone that had a heavy German population would have had a unit. In our area,
was it a big German population here in Bergen County?
Yeah, you had Karlstadt that's a German name.
Karlstadt.
Yeah, Karlstadt. You had you had Newark. You had organizations in Newark, Hoboken, Union City. There's a bar right across from the Union City Police Department that was the headquarters of the Union County Bund, and they would have meetings at the bar, and in the back room they'd have rallies and stuff like that. And then Jewish war veterans and the VFW would like agitate and break up those meetings, and they'd have brawls that would spill out into the street. Yeah, so you had units, but for the most part, it would either be on a city level or on a county level that you would have a unit. So Bergen County was organized by the county level. So we had a county level, which was, I think Hackensack actually was organized out of, but it was a Glen Rock resident that was the head of the Bergen County unit.
So how was it when you're going through it and you just stumble across this?
Yeah, so I was like, holy crap. So I put her off to the side because I had to finish my thesis.
So while you were working on your thesis, you stumbled across this information.
Yeah.
You said, you know what, I'm definitely getting back to this.
Absolutely. So I ended up, put it on the side, but it had a case file listed by his name because they did a separate investigation on him. So
the FBI.
The FBI. So I got that from the National Archives. It took about 16 months to get it.
Really?
Yeah, it took a while. So
How long did it take you to complete your thesis?
Well, the thesis itself was a whole year of research and writing. So
there you go. You had 4 months.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. My mistake. I didn't request it until afterwards. But that didn't stop my research. So I ended up going in our police department archives because I kind of know some people. I can get into them.
Yeah, I would think so. After 23 and a half years.
So I got into the archives. I got into the old blotters, and it was really cool because I would like look in the blotters, and I'm going through the blotters, and I'd see like, FBI agents came to headquarters, went with Sergeant Mulqueen and Chief whatever his name, I forgot the chief's name at the time, but they would go over to the Shiphorse residence and they would interview him. And then I would look when I finally got the FBI file, I'd see the FBI report with the same date saying like we went to the house and this is all the stuff we got, like from the interview and from the search warrant and stuff like that. So they did a couple search warrants, they interviewed him a couple times. It's a really
what were they claiming? Like, why were they going after him?
Because he was a Nazi.
But this was pre War II.
Yeah. So it's pre-war War. So we don't enter the war until Pearl Harbor.
Right.
But the war starts in 1939. So it's like about 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
So war starts in 1939. England, who is like kind of like, if you had to guess or if you had to say, we're officially neutral.
Yeah.
But we're helping England.
Unofficial allies.
Yeah, we're more allied with England than we are with Germany.
Yeah.
So the German-American Bund, their whole goal is to support candidates that are in favor of isolationism. Stay out of the war. Don't help British.
Anybody, right.
Yeah. Whereas like, FDR, we had the whole Lend-Lease program. We're neutral, but we're neutral in name. We're helping the allies.
Yeah,
So if you had to pick sides, we're really more allied than we are Axis. So even though we were neutral, anyone Nazi was still considered a potential threat that they had to keep an eye on.
Okay.
Plus, they had camps. They had Nazi camps in the United States, in New Jersey.
Where?
In Riverdale was a camp, Andover, New Jersey, up in Sussex County. That was the largest camp in the United States.
They had Nazi camps in Andover.
In Andover, Camp Nordman. It's the largest camp in the United States.
Who were they putting in those camps?
No. Not like a concentration camp.
Right.
It was like a summer camp.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought it was a detainment camp.
No. They did have detainment camps, believe it or not. Ellis Island, where the Statue of Liberty is.
Yeah.
Ellis Island, that area there.
Yeah.
That was a detainment camp. But that was an American-run internment camp for enemy aliens. So our subject from Glen Rock, the Nazi spy, actually ends up in Ellis Island interned.
Really?
Yeah.
So after the FBI came, they had warrants, they searched.
Yep.
They end up interning him there.
Yeah. Well, you want to get to that now, or you want to get to that later?
Yeah. Let's keep going.
All right. I was going to talk about the camps real quick. But,
Talk about
camps.
So summer camps for the German-American Bund.
So basically, like I said earlier, the basis for the Bund membership was Germans who came over after World War I. They came over because of economic hardships.
Sure.
So they come over to the United States. They're not in wealthy areas. They're in tenements. They're in the cities.
Yeah.
So if I am a German immigrant living in Yorkville in New York City and I have kids, well, during the summertime, I want to try to get my kids out to the country.
Right.
Well, New Jersey was the country through New York.
Right.
So, it's a half-hour drive today. It probably took 2 hours to get there in 1938, So what the German-American Bund did was, this was a summer camp where members from the city could go out and rent a cabin or go stay in a one of the cabins for the summer, or buy a cabin very cheap and be part of this camp. So the members would go out there, the kids would go out there, they would go out to these camps for the summertime, sports, hikes, songs, rallies, speeches, all kinds of stuff. There's videos online, you can see the fall of France in 1940. The next day, there's a giant rally in Andover, a parade, musicians, Nazi flags, with American flags, celebrating the fall of France in 1940.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
You have images of that?
There's video of it, color video from Andover, New Jersey, celebrating the fall of France in 1940.
All right, I'm gonna try to find that so we can post it right on this video.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, send me the link.
Anyway,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So
the camps. I mean, it was great for the kids, but there's still a little twist to it. Like they're kind of training them.
Well, yeah, you're teaching your ideology. You're teaching your beliefs. But from my research, if I'm a poor German and I want to get my kids out of the city for the summertime, this was a good opportunity to get my kids out. And if it's 1938, what do I care? Maybe I'm not a Nazi. Maybe I'm not a National Socialist.
Right.
But in 1938, again, I think people forget. People look at history from their current glasses, not from the glasses of the time.
Yeah.
I would never send my kids to a Nazi camp. But in 1938, a lot of people,
there was no Holocaust.
There was no Holocaust, and a lot of people who weren't necessarily Nazis, this is a great opportunity for me to get my kids out of the city, and if they had to listen to a couple speeches, so be it. Like, they didn't know what was going to come.
Right.
So they may not have been ardent Nazis or National Socialists, but they get their kids out of the summer, or out of the city for the summer. Yeah. And then the German American Bund, they see it as a great opportunity to spread their gospel, spread their recruit. Yeah. So, it's, it's no different than some organizations today. Like, come to our camp and we'll teach you about whatever they're into.
Whatever's about the camp. Whatever the camp's about.
And if in 10 years from now they become the Nazis, then people are going to look in 50 years and look back and say, well, how could you send your kids to that camp? But you don't know that at the time. You don't know what's going to happen at the time. But by the same token, they obviously were out and anti-Semitic and keep the races separate, keep this. So it wasn't a hidden thing, but it wasn't the Holocaust.
Right. It wasn't a scary thing. It was just.
It was still a. There were a lot of people against it. The Jewish war veterans were definitely against it. The VFW was against it. Politicians were against it. So there were definitely people that were against it, but it was more a political against it versus just the humanity.
Right. It's like Republicans are against the Democrats.
Exactly. Maybe a little bit worse than that.
A little bit worse than that, right?
But it wasn't like the scourge of humanity kind of thing.
Yeah. Not until a few years later.
Yeah.
So,
but you want to talk about the internment?
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, the FBI, they investigate the Bund, and they basically know they want to get these guys, but they really don't have a lot to get them. Like when they did the search warrant on this guy's house, he's got a diary, he's got a songbook, he's got Nazi stamps. Like not your smoking gun as far as like, oh my God, we're going to arrest this guy.
Right.
But what the fear was of a fifth column. So the fifth column term comes from the Spanish Civil War, and when during the Spanish Civil War there were armies basically approaching Madrid from four sides. So you have four columns approaching the city, and they said that a fifth column is going to rise from within, from inside the city. Supporters of our cause are going to rise from within the city and basically take us down from within. They're going to be an uprising inside the country, inside the city. So the term fifth column basically says all these Nazi sympathizers that are here in the United States, they're training at these camps, they're doing target practice. Now, the Boy Scouts did target practice, but the German American Bund doing target practice was for Der Tag, the day of the uprising.
Wow.
So they're looking at these guys and they're trying to basically. They know it's a threat. They think it's a threat, but they don't have the smoking gun to arrest them.
Yeah.
So they kind of go after them with a couple different legal angles. They have FARA, which is the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which I like to say. I get a little chuckle when I do it in my presentations. I'll say it basically says if you're an agent or a spy for another country, you have to register with the United States. And everyone jokes like, "What spy is going to register with the United States?"
Spy here.
But there's twofold for that. One, you have to have a law against it for it to be illegal.
Right.
And two,
there was one. There wasn't one.
Well, that is the law.
Yeah.
And two, it's not just for spies. So if I work for OPEC, right, oil-producing countries like the Middle East, I'm actually working for a foreign agent.
Right. Okay, keep it.
So I'm working for a foreign agent. So I would need to. Register with the United States that I'm working for a foreign agent. So it has legitimate things as well too. So they went after him for that. If you ran like a propaganda bookstore and you're getting your propaganda material right from Berlin, you're working for Berlin. You have to register. If you don't register, you're actually in violation of the law.
Right.
You could get arrested. You could get deported. What most of the Bund members kind of got wrapped up in was the Oath of Allegiance investigation. It basically said, I'm a German. I want to become a United States citizen. When I become a citizen, I take an oath of allegiance to the United States.
I did it.
Okay, you were born outside the United States?
Yeah, I was born in Italy.
All right, so you...
18 years old.
Okay, so
I took the oath.
Do you remember your oath?
Absolutely.
So do you have to renounce any allegiance to foreign...
I did.
All right, so you renounce your allegiance to a foreign country and you become...
An American citizen.
You pledge allegiance to the United States.
Yeah.
So, but there was at the time, and I don't think they have it anymore, they had a little clause in there that says, I renounce any... allegiance to a foreign country without reservation.
Yeah.
So I think that without reservation was taken out. But basically, what the United States government said was, if you're a member of the German American Bund, you support Nazi Germany, you support the Third Reich, you have mental reservations about your oath of allegiance. Yeah. So therefore, it nullifies your oath of allegiance, which nullifies your citizenship.
So that was the loophole.
That was a loophole to deport everyone, which, by the way, got overturned in like 1949.
So he was born in Germany and moved here.
He was born in Germany.
Okay.
Fought in World War I for the German army. After the fall of Germany in World War I, because of the economic hardship, he emigrates to the United States, settles initially in I think Ridgewood. I think he definitely lived in Ridgewood. I think Ridgewood was his first spot. He may have been Hackensack, but he is in Ridgewood on Ackerman Avenue. And then he moves to Glen Rock, where he finally settles down in Glen Rock.
Wow. So the FBI comes in and says, hey, you pledged allegiance to America.
Yep.
And we found documents here saying that you still have allegiance to Germany.
Well, because you were the leader of this organization in the Bergen County unit, you pledge allegiance to Nazis still, so we're going to revoke your citizenship.
You're going to Ellis Island.
But there's a twist. So they're interviewing the family multiple times. So finally his wife calls up the FBI and she says, I want to voluntarily revoke our citizenship. Because she can see the writing on the wall. She knows what's going to happen. There's no use fighting this. This is going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. So she calls up. She says, I'm going to voluntarily revoke our family citizenship. I have one request. Keep us together as a family. And do not let our daughter, Ursula, know that she's adopted. She was adopted and they didn't know. Or the girl didn't know. Wow. So that was a request. So I have a letter in the FBI file that says they do not have sufficient evidence to charge this guy, but yet she's voluntarily withdrawn. So basically what they do is they like rubber stamp it and they say, get rid of it. Because she's willing to do it, let's just move it along.
And you're deported.
So they took him to, and it says right in our police blotter, it says, responded to the Shiphorse residence, picked up mother, father, and 13-year-old daughter, and took them to Ellis Island. So Ellis Island, during World War II, was an internment camp. So everyone learns about the Japanese internment during World War II. Very well known, very well studied. Lots of Japanese were interned. Probably like 150 to 180,000 Japanese interned. In World War II, you actually have about 20 to 30,000 German and Italian immigrants that are also interned. But we don't hear about that in school. We only hear about the Japanese. Yeah. So obviously a much lower number, but we still have this internment. A little bit of racism involved there. I can easily tell who is Japanese. Yeah. I can't tell who's German based on just looks, you know. Right. So, but anyway, so you have the internment in Ellis Island. So they're in Ellis Island for a couple months, and then they get sent to Crystal City, Texas, which is the largest internment camp in the United States. So now, Crystal City, Texas, the camp's not there anymore, but there's a memorial website built to it because they had a high school there. They had all kinds of stuff there. People who maybe not millions, but thousands of people went through this internment camp that even children went through the camp that may still be alive today. So people went to high school, people did all kinds of stuff there. There's a website that kind of documents what these people went through. So
they shipped them from Ellis Island to
Crystal City, Texas. So
they're going to deport them back to Germany.
It took like 2 years to deport them, and they voluntarily went. It took them like 2 years. So anyway, they're in Crystal City, Texas. There's a website dedicated to this internment camp, and I'm browsing the website one day, and it's got to be 100,000 people that got deported through Crystal City, Texas. And on the website, they have a picture of one of the deportation lists of the thousands of people that got deported. And I'm looking at this deportation, swear to God, I'm looking at the deportation list, and right in the middle, Carl Shiphorst, Ursula Shiphorst, and Barbara Shiphorst.
The Glen Rock family.
The Glen Rock family is the
memorialized on the
Wow. And if you look at the date and the time that they actually got deported and put on the ship was like 3:30 a.m.
Wow, that is insane.
So they get deported back. Now it's 1944. They get deported back to Europe. It's a war still on. You can't pull into Hamburg. And drop off people.
Live happily ever after.
So they dropped them in Portugal because Portugal was neutral at the time.
Right.
So you basically just dump them. You dump this mother and father
and daughter
and 13-year-old daughter who grew up in Bergen County.
Right.
In Portugal. So then they're dumped there. I don't know how, but somehow they make their way from Portugal to Dresden in Germany.
Dresden.
Through
Europe.
Through Europe, which is in the middle of
a World War II.
Yeah, like D-Day's happened, the Allies are closing in on Germany, and here's this family making their way to Germany.
Right, as everyone else is trying to leave Germany.
So here's this.
Gosh.
So just about a 13-year-old female grew up in Bergen County, is now in Dresden.
Thrown into the war.
And Dresden is known for the firebombing. The Allied firebombing destroyed Dresden, and they lived through that. They lived through the Allied bombing.
Crazy, right? And it all started right here in Glen Rock.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell that he's a good detective. That's why he's Detective Sergeant. I love the fact that you bring an investigative mind to history.
Yeah.
Because you probably would not have been able to dig up as much as you dug up, on with just pulling together the facts and being able to investigate and dig deeper and, like you said, think out of the box.
Well, none of that story is in the FBI files. The FBI files ends with the deportation.
Right.
They got put on a boat.
You kept going.
And that was it.
Yeah.
There's not a word of what happened.
But then it's like, all right, so what happened?
I did all the investigation afterwards to figure out what happened to these people. I tracked down the family.
You're not going to get anything past this guy. He's got a year and a half left. So if you plan on doing anything, wait another year and a half. Well, I could tell that you have a passion for this.
Yeah, I really do.
And I know you do a lot of speeches. So, if anybody's listening and, you're affiliated with any schools, organizations, I mean, it's a wealth of information. So does your history knowledge go all the way back to the Revolutionary War?
Yeah, so I love anything history.
Yeah, what do you speak on? Like some of the
military mostly, but military, German, investigative stuff. So basically I put together this Nazi spy presentation from Glen Rock as a presentation that I've given to libraries, historical societies, civic organizations. I've probably presented 50 times on it over the years, and I keep getting asked to do it. In November, I'm going to be doing it for the Naval Air Station in Wildwood, Cape May Naval Air Station. They have a museum down there. I'm going to be presenting for them virtually online. But a lot of these places ask me, they really enjoyed the presentation, they want to know if I do anything else. So I've expanded now. So now I've developed a presentation on the Charles Lindbergh baby kidnapping and murder and the trial investigation about that. So I'm going to basically look at that investigation, who they arrested and executed, and whether or not he really did it or not. So I'm kind of looking into that from a law enforcement perspective. I'm looking at German sabotage during World War I and World War II. There was actually a munitions factory that was sabotaged and exploded in Lyndhurst in 1917 or 18. There was an explosion on Black Palm Island, which is down by the Statue of Liberty, and they say that explosion during World War I is why you can't go up in the arm anymore in the torch, because it damaged the Statue of Liberty. So there's all this stuff that happened here in our area that a lot of people don't know about. So I'm doing a presentation on that now. I'm doing a presentation on the Hindenburg disaster, and I have a lot more that I'm in the process of. I have a lot of ideas that I'm looking to do presentations for.
So you can't wait to retire.
I kind of can't.
A lot of people, when I have a lot of friends that are like, I ask them, so you're going to retire soon? He goes, what am I going to do?
I got to do something you like. You got to do something you like. My dad always said, if you do something you enjoy, you're never going to work a day in your life. So everything I've always done has always been like, what do I enjoy? I'd rather do something I enjoy and make less money than make more money and hate going to work every day.
Now, do you have a website that you post some of this information on?
Absolutely, yeah. So I have a website. It's www.hunting-history.com.
Hunting-history.com.
Yeah, so I'm always hunting history. I'm always hunting. So I do genealogical research. I'm actually teaching a genealogical class at the River Edge Library monthly, which is going to start this coming month of September.
Do you post those events on your site?
It's going to be posted on my website. I do the historical lectures, which I give all over the place. And if you think you're interested in one of my lectures, and go talk to your library, I'd be happy to come. I've traveled 200 miles to go to do a lecture. So I do a lot of research for documentary films. I'm actually involved in documentary work right now. So I've been in a couple films, one in Europe that is supposed to come out on Netflix, but COVID kind of screwed that up, so I'm still waiting for that to come over here. And I'm involved in a film right now, which we're still doing research for, that is going to be on American television hopefully next year. So that one, I'm crossing my fingers, is going to come out soon.
Well, and I know you talked about at some point you're going to have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, so actually the reason I kind of reached out to you in the first place was because I knew about you in town and the podcast you do, and I had this idea of doing these like mini focused documentaries, like a 15-20 minute.
Well, look, we talked for almost 40 minutes about this guy. I mean, it's a very and I know there's a lot more to talk about. So listen, make sure you go to his website, hunting-history.com, and check out the events he has coming up. Go see him if he's anywhere in your area, or if you want to bring him to your area, you want to bring him to your library, you want to bring him to your school. There's a lot of this history is not taught.
No.
Like a lot of the stuff we talked about, I never heard of it.
It's fascinating. I think it all should be made in a movie. We were talking about the submarines and the Nazi spies that landed on Long Island in Florida.
Nazi spies that landed on the shores of Long Island. How about that? Is that on your website?
It's not on my website, but it's part of my presentation.
All right, see?
And it's gonna be part of my espionage, World War II espionage presentation, where I'm gonna elaborate on it. Right now, it's a small part of the German-American Bund presentation. Right. It's gonna be
it's gonna be its own.
It's deserving of its own.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like you take that isolated thing that's part of a bigger thing, and it's easy to compress it into 15-20 minutes.
There's so much history that people don't realize because it's not big enough.
It's not glamorous.
It's not big enough for a full-length movie,
right?
Or a full-length book. But you look at some of the little things. It's just so much out there, and it's great.
Keep an eye on Detective Sergeant James Kolaski. He's got a year and a half left, and then I'm sure you're going to see a lot of content coming out.
Hopefully. Check IMDb.
Make sure you go to hunting-history.com. See where he's going to be. Go and say hello, and take a look at some of the things that he's investigating. James, it was so great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's very cool. All right, be well, everybody.
Thank you.